Would you call this guy a great singer? Not necessarily.
He's the man with the velvet voice. The guy Nashville calls the nicest man in country music. A 21-time Grammy winner, Vince Gill has long been the humble, guitar-slinging poet fans adored for decades. His heartfelt ballads, pristine musicianship, and devotion to country's roots made him a legend in a genre often caught between tradition and trend. But behind that disarming smile, those kind eyes, and endless awards, there's a side of Vince Gill most fans have never seen. A quieter, sharper, and unflinching critic who spent decades silently drawing lines in the Nashville sand. And now, thanks to new insider revelations and years of whispered rumors, we finally have a clearer picture of the names on Vince Gill's secret blacklist. Yes, you heard that right. This isn't some petty list of rivalries. These are country music icons, superstars, and boundary pushers Vince couldn't stand. Artists whose choices, success, and styles quietly infuriated one of the genre's most respected purists. Some of these names will shock you. In particular, flips the friendly image of Vince Gill on its head. So buckle up, because once we get to number one, you'll never look at Nashville or Vince Gill the same way again. Before we dive into the names on this secret list, let's rewind a bit. Vince Gill grew up in Norman, Oklahoma. Not exactly Nashville, but close enough for dreams to take root. Raised in a home filled with music and strict life lessons, his father was a federal judge and a part-time musician who taught Vince both discipline and the guitar. Those early years were tough. Vince ground through bluegrass bands, slept in beat-up vans, and scraped together gigs wherever he could. Talent, true talent, always finds a way, and find a way he did. By the 1980s and 90s, Vince Gill wasn't just another country artist. He became the musician's musician, known for intricate guitar work, honest lyrics, and a voice smoother than Tennessee whiskey. But as his star rose, so did his frustration. Behind the scenes, Vince watched as country music started shifting. Faster, flashier, and more commercial. He saw the rise of artists built on image over skill, gimmick over soul. Syncing took over live shows. Awards were handed to acts who played politics instead of instruments, and the heart of country music, humility, struggle, and truth, was being drowned out by filters, pyrotechnics, and commercial rebellion. While Vince clapped politely at awards shows, his blood quietly boiled. Bit his tongue for years. Until now. Let's get into it. It might feel sacrilegious to suggest any tension between Vince Gill and Garth Brooks. After all, they both dominated the country charts in the 90s and built fiercely loyal fan bases. But behind the scenes, the divide was real and deep. Where Vince valued nuance, heartbreak delivered in a whisper, and guitar solos crafted with care, Garth Brooks blew the roof off arenas with headset mics, pyrotechnics, and rock-sized country anthems. It wasn't just about style. It was about philosophy. Garth represented the commercial revolution Vince dreaded. A world where storytelling took a back seat to spectacle, where authenticity got replaced with stadium smoke machines. Rumors say Vince even declined a duet offer from Garth in the early 2000s. Not because of scheduling, but on principle. And though Vince never named names, subtle digs peppered his interviews. "We're starting to forget what genre we're in," he once said. At a CMA event, he reportedly joked, "Country music isn't Broadway with boots." The audience laughed. The industry insiders caught the message. They never shared a stage in any meaningful way, despite decades of shared superstardom. And in Nashville, that silence speaks volumes. Now, this one shocked even Vince's longtime fans. Chris Christopherson is an outlaw legend, raw, ragged, and authentic to the bone. For Vince, the problem wasn't Christopherson's success. It was the way critics romanticized his chaos. While Chris staggered through interviews and scribbled songs on bar napkins, Vince was in the studio perfecting guitar tones and tightening verses. He believed artistry meant mastering your craft. Vince, Christopherson had skipped the discipline and got rewarded for the damage. Insiders recall a CMA rehearsal years ago where Kristofferson was scheduled to perform. Vince reportedly left early, muttering something about not watching another train wreck. One close friend once claimed Vince said, "It's not deep, it's just sloppy." He lowered the bar and called it genius. Their paths never crossed musically. No duets, no tribute performances, no recorded collaborations. And when Vince hosted events honoring Kristofferson's peers, his name was conspicuously absent. It wasn't hate, it was a philosophical rift too deep to mend. Billy Ray Cyrus's 1992 hit "Achy Breaky Heart" wasn't just a chart topper. It was a cultural earthquake, practically overnight. What began as a simple, twangy tune turned into a global sensation. Line dancing wasn't just a country pastime anymore. It became a national obsession. Bars, high school gyms, and suburban community centers alike were packed with eager two-steppers, all moving in sync to the now infamous chorus. The music video, with its denim, mullets, and hip-swiveling swagger, played on an endless loop on CMT. Billy Ray was everywhere, from magazine covers to late-night talk shows, even landing acting gigs off the back of his musical success. For many, it was a thrilling moment when country music had finally gone mainstream. One man in Nashville wasn't celebrating. Vince Gill. Vince's "Achy Breaky Heart" was more than just a cheesy hit. It was a harbinger of danger. He reportedly quipped in a CMA green room that the song had set country music back 10 years. A remark that spread like wildfire down Music Row's back channel. And for Vince, this wasn't rooted in jealousy. It was about protecting a tradition. Country music, to Vince, was supposed to be about stories. Stories of love, loss, heartache, and hope. It was music carved from real-life struggles, performed by musicians who played their own instruments and meant every word they sang. "Achy Breaky Heart," in his eyes, was the opposite. A novelty tune with a one-line chorus, served up with a marketing gimmick of big hair and tight jeans. The clash wasn't merely musical, it was cultural. Vince was a meticulous craftsman, a perfectionist who obsessed over lyrics, melody, and musicianship. He valued sincerity, authenticity, and emotional depth. Ray's meteoric rise, driven more by image and catchiness than by substance, marked the beginning of a dangerous era in Vince's view, one where style threatened to drown out the soul of the genre. Insiders say the tension between the two men was tangible. Award shows became awkward affairs. The pair never collaborated, never shared a stage, and according to one backstage worker, barely exchanged glances if they crossed paths. And the influence of "Achy Breaky Heart" didn't stop Billy Ray. It opened the floodgates for a wave of image-driven, radio-ready artists who prioritized market appeal over meaningful songwriting. Vince watched, increasingly disheartened, as country music edged closer to pop culture's glossy, disposable trends. To this day, Vince Gill has quietly waged a battle to preserve country's integrity, one that began, in many ways, the moment that infectious, gimmicky chorus first hit the airwaves. Shania Twain didn't just join country music, he detonated it. Dubbed the Queen of Country Pop, Shania exploded onto the scene in the mid-90s with a look, sound, and swagger Nashville had never seen. Her albums weren't just successful, they redefined what success looked like in country music. Come On Over became the best-selling country album of all time, with over 40 million copies sold worldwide. A staggering feat that left jaws on the floor in both Nashville and Los Angeles. Songs like "Man, I Feel Like a Woman" don't impress me much, and "You're Still the One" weren't merely country chart toppers. They became global pop anthems. Shania's music videos shimmered with glitz, choreography, and cutting-edge production. She headlined international tours, graced fashion magazine covers, and crossed over into mainstream radio at a time when country was still mostly a regional affair. And while millions of new fans embraced this fresh, pop-flavored country hybrid, one man wasn't raising a glass: Vince Gill. For Vince, Shania's rise marked a defining and deeply troubling pivot point in country music history. It wasn't born from dusty backroad ballads or the kind of heartbreak songs you nursed with a stiff drink at a roadside bar. It was built on glossy pop hooks, radio-friendly formulas, and million-dollar music videos designed for MTV and VH1 as much as for CMT. Insiders in Nashville began to notice the tension, not through fiery interviews or public spats, but in silence. Vince and Shania never recorded a duet. They never performed together on an award show stage, never traded compliments in press junkets, and barely crossed paths during multi-artist tributes. In an industry where collaborations are currency and public unity is a carefully curated image, their mutual absence was deafening. Industry veterans whispered that Vince saw Shania's success as the moment Nashville's business machine fully took the wheel, chasing radio-friendly crossovers at the expense of country's storytelling roots. Once lamented in an interview, "Sometimes we forget what genre we're in," a line widely believed to be a veiled jab at the rise of Shania's pop-centric dominance. Shania didn't just shift the sound, she changed the culture of Nashville. Labels scrambled to find the next Shania, focusing on image, marketability, and crossover appeal. And while the genre grew in popularity, Vince feared it was losing its identity. Quiet, unspoken rivalry was born, one that spoke volumes without either artist ever having to say a word. Behind the scenes, Nashville insiders whispered that Vince saw Shania's success as the spark that ignited a new era of pop country clone. Acts like Carrie Underwood, Taylor Swift, and Kelsey Ballerini stormed the charts with crossover appeal, while Vince's brand of heartfelt, roots-driven country quietly receded from the spotlight. Vince, it wasn't personal. It was about protecting the genre's identity. In one interview, he lamented, "Sometimes we forget what genre we're in." A subtle jab, perhaps, but in the tightly wound world of country music politics, it spoke volumes. If Garth Brooks turned country concerts into arena rock spectacles, Jason Aldean took it a step further, becoming the unapologetic face of bro country. A high-octane, beer-soaked sound built on tailgates, back roads, and good-time party anthem. His songs blasted from trucks, college bars, and summer festivals across the country. Tracks like She's Country and Dirt Road Anthem weren't just hits. They were lifestyle soundtracks for a new generation of country fans. Aldean's rise brought an energy Nashville hadn't seen since the heyday of hair metal. But to Vince Gill, it wasn't country music. Not in spirit, not in substance. "It's fine to have fun in music," Vince remarked in a candid Rolling Stone interview. "But let's not pretend it's country just because there's a pickup truck in the video." Vince's issue wasn't with fun. It was with what Aldean's brand of country represents: shallow, formulaic lyrics, thunderous production, and an emphasis on lifestyle marketing over authentic, lived experience. Vince, it felt like a betrayal of everything country music was built on. Insiders say Vince quietly declined award show appearances and industry events, where Aldean was the featured headline. He reportedly turned down opportunities to present him with accolades, not out of petty rivalry, but as a personal protest. A refusal to co-sign what he saw as the genre's sellout era. Clash wasn't about chart positions or fan bases. It was about values. Vince believed country music should tell stories that mean something. Aldean's tracks, however popular, often felt like hollow party slogans, disconnected from the emotional depth that once defined the genre. In many ways, Aldean symbolized the very thing Vince spent his career resisting. And in Nashville, that unspoken distance said more than any public feud ever could. No, Kanye West isn't a country artist. But in the eyes of Vince Gill, Kanye came to symbolize something much bigger and far more troubling about the state of modern music. To Vince, Kanye's relentless self-promotion, over-the-top antics, and ego-driven brand of celebrity represent a dangerous shift in the music world, one where spectacle replaces substance and where ego trumps humility. In a 2016 interview, Vince made a pointed observation without naming names. "I see young artists walk into a room and expect the world to bow," he said. "Back in my day, you earned respect by listening first." That same month, Kanye took the stage at a concert and boldly proclaimed himself the greatest artist of all time. Headlines exploded. Social media lost its mind. And anyone paying attention connected the dots between Vince's quiet criticism and Kanye's public bravado. For Vince, music has always been about connection, humility, and sincerity. It's a sacred exchange between artist and audience, not a platform for personal mythology. And Kanye's headline-grabbing stunts, from storming award show stages to making jaw-dropping claims about his own greatness, are the very embodiment of what Vince sees as the music industry's descent into narcissism. The clash isn't about genre, it's about values. Kanye builds empires on controversy and chaos. Vince builds legacies on honesty and heart. And though the two men have likely never crossed paths, the cultural distance between them could fill an arena. In many ways, Kanye represents the cautionary tale Vince has been warning about for years. A world where celebrity overshadows song, and where artists become brands long before they become storytellers. Finally, the most unexpected and charged name on this list: Travis Tritt. Unlike the quiet, simmering tensions Vince Gill had with others, this rivalry wasn't just about artistic differences. It boiled over. Back in 1997, during a star-studded benefit concert, Vince reportedly made an offhand remark in a backstage conversation about fake outlaws who can't write a verse to save their life. It was a pointed jab at the growing number of artists riding the outlaw image without the songwriting chops to back it up. Word, as it does in Nashville, traveled fast, and it landed squarely in Travis Tritt's camp. Travis, a proud flag-bearer of outlaw country, built his reputation on rowdy, defiant tracks and a rebellious image. Songs like "Here's a Quarter," "Call Someone Who Cares," and "TROUBLE" made him a fan favorite for those craving grit over gloss. When he heard about Vince's remarks, he wasn't about to let it slide. Insiders say Travis confronted Vince backstage that night. It didn't get physical, but one witness claimed Tritt delivered a stare so cold, the whole room went silent. The tension was thick enough to cut with a guitar pick. Their fan bases never really overlapped, and neither did their musical philosophy. Vince was a perfectionist, obsessed with craftsmanship and clean, emotional ballads. Travis championed the rough edges, the wild spirit of country's rebellious past. In truth, their clash wasn't just personal. It symbolized a much larger battle in 90s polished tradition versus rowdy rebellion, the Music Row establishment versus the outlaw revival. And that unseen war helped shape country music's uneasy evolution through the decade. To this day, neither has publicly addressed the incident. But in Nashville circles, the Cold War between Vince and Travis remains one of country music's most quietly enduring feuds. And there you have it. 7 artists Vince Gill couldn't stand. 7 tensions, some loud, some quiet, that shaped not just one man's career, but the story of country music itself. Outlaw poets to stadium-filling rock stars. Each name on this list represents a moment when country's soul was pulled in different directions. And while Vince rarely raised his voice, his absence spoke volume. Because in Nashville, when Vince Gill won't share your stage, it means something. If you loved this story, hit like, subscribe, and ring that bell for more hidden country music drama, backstage stories, and untold truths. This is just the beginning. See you next time.